I met Jason when I was in high school. That wasn't his real name, but for reasons you'll soon understand, I don't want to say what it actually was. Jason was different. He was the kind of kid you'd swear was in the background of every school picture, but somehow didn't really exist. No one knew where he lived. No one ever saw his parents. He never had any social media, and if you asked about him, most people wouldn't even remember what class he was in. But I remembered, because for some reason, Jason had decided that I was special. It started small. I'd catch him watching me in the cafeteria, sitting a few tables away, always alone. He never ate. Just sat there, staring, his eyes blank and glassy like he was looking through me. Sometimes I'd see him standing at the end of the hallway when I walked to class. Always there, always quiet, always watching. Then one day, he spoke to me. "You're different," he said. His voice was too smooth, too flat, like he had practiced saying those words 100 times before using them. I laughed awkwardly and said thanks, not knowing what else to say. "You're chosen," he added. That part made me uncomfortable, but I didn't want to be mean. "Okay, cool," I said, shifting my books in my arms and walking away. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The first real incident happened at lunch one day. I was sitting with my friends, talking about a math test or something equally boring, when Jason suddenly appeared behind me. No one saw him approach. He just arrived. He leaned in and whispered, "Be careful what you say." I jumped and turned to him. "What?" He didn't answer, just walked away. My friends laughed nervously, calling him weird, but the unease settled deep in my stomach. It only got worse after that. One night, I was at my friend Alex's house. A few of us were hanging out in his backyard, talking about random high school drama when the topic of Jason came up. "Dude is straight up creepy," Alex said, sipping his soda. "Yeah, I swear he follows people around," my friend Sarah added. Then, as if we summoned him, Jason stepped out of the darkness, standing just outside the ring of our porch light. None of us had seen him approach. We went dead silent. Jason tilted his head. "I warned you," he said, and then he turned and walked away into the shadows. None of us slept well that night. The next day at school, Jason wasn't there. That would have been a relief, except for what happened later that evening. I was home alone, my parents out for dinner, when I heard something tap against my bedroom window. I live on the second floor. Slowly, my heart pounding, I crept toward the window. I didn't want to look, but something inside me made me do it. I pulled back the curtain. Jason was there, standing on the roof outside my window, staring at me through the glass. I screamed and stumbled back, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. By the time I gathered the courage to look again, he was gone. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made my skin crawl. The thought of Jason lurking in the darkness sent chills down my spine. The next morning, I decided to confront him. But Jason never came back to school. No one knew what happened to him. No one had seen him, not at his house, not around town. It was like he had never existed at all. That was years ago, and I moved away for college, far from that town, far from the memories. But sometimes late at night, when I'm home alone and the wind is just right, I swear I still hear something tap against my window. I work as a night shift delivery driver for a local warehouse. It's not a great job, but it pays the bills, and honestly, I kind of enjoy the quiet. There's something peaceful about driving around when the rest of the world is asleep, or at least, that's what I used to think. A few months ago, I had a route that took me out to the edge of town, to this small, isolated neighborhood that was mostly farmland and old, rundown houses. It was the kind of place where people kept to themselves, where the roads were dark and unmarked, and where cell service was spotty at best. I was making a delivery to one of the last houses on my list, a place I had never been to before. It wasn't on the main road, but tucked away down a narrow dirt path. I almost missed the turn because there were no streetlights, just my headlights illuminating the tall, swaying grass on either side of the road. As I pulled up to the house, I got a weird feeling. The place looked abandoned. The paint was peeling, the windows were dark, and the front porch was sagging like it hadn't been stepped on in years. There was an old truck parked in the driveway, but something about it seemed off. The windows were too clean, the tires looked brand new. It was like someone had just placed it there, rather than actually using it. Still, I had a job to do. I grabbed the package, walked up to the porch, and knocked on the door. Silence. I knocked again, a little louder this time. Nothing. Normally I'd just leave the package and move on, but something about the whole situation didn't sit right with me. I checked my phone to see if I had the right address, but of course, no signal. I decided to wait for a minute, just in case someone was inside. That's when I heard it. A scraping sound. It was faint, but it was coming from around the side of the house. It was the kind of noise you'd hear if someone was dragging something heavy across gravel. My stomach dropped. I told myself it was probably just some old farm equipment shifting in the wind. That's when I saw the curtain in one of the windows move. Someone was watching me. I froze. My instincts were screaming at me to get the hell out of there, but my feet wouldn't move. Then, just as I was about to turn back to my truck, the front door creaked open. Just an inch. A voice came from inside, low and uneven. "Come in." Absolutely not. I forced out a nervous chuckle and said I'd just leave the package on the porch. No response. The door didn't open any further, and I couldn't see who was inside. I slowly backed away, keeping my eyes locked on the opening. That's when I noticed something in my peripheral vision. There was a figure standing in the tall grass, just beyond the edge of the porch light. Not moving, not making a sound, just standing there. I turned my head just slightly to get a better look, and as soon as I did, I heard the stories passed down from older siblings and whispered during sleepovers. Some said a man used to live there, a hermit who went mad and disappeared one winter. Others said it was cursed, that anyone who stepped inside would never come back out. Alex and I weren't scared of much, but we never dared to go near that cabin. Until one summer night. We were both in high school by then, Alex a senior, and me a sophomore. It was late July, and our parents had gone out for the night. Bored, Alex suggested we go for a walk in the woods. I agreed, not thinking much of it. The night air was warm, and the cicadas droned in the distance. We walked our usual path, cracking jokes and reminiscing about all the stupid things we'd done as kids. Then Alex changed direction. "Let's check out the cabin," he said with a grin. I hesitated. "Why?" "Because we're not kids anymore," he shrugged. "I want to see what's inside." Every instinct in me told me to say no, but I didn't want to be the cowardly little brother. So I followed him. The air felt colder as we neared the clearing. The trees loomed overhead, blocking out most of the moonlight. When we stepped into the clearing, the cabin stood there, silent and lifeless, a forgotten relic in the middle of nowhere. Alex went up the porch first, testing the wood with his foot. It creaked under his weight. I lingered behind, feeling uneasy. "Come on," he called, pushing the door open. The inside was worse than I imagined. The floor was covered in debris, old newspapers, shattered glass, animal bones. A single chair sat in the middle of the room, facing a crumbling fireplace. It was eerily still, like the place was holding its breath. Then Alex noticed something. Against the far wall was a bed frame, rusted and broken, but it wasn't empty. A pile of blankets was bunched up on top like someone had been sleeping there recently. My stomach turned. "We should go," I whispered. Alex was about to say something when we heard it. A slow, deliberate knock. Not from the front door, from inside the house. We both froze. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. Alex turned, scanning the room. Then another knock. This time it came from the floor. I grabbed Alex's arm. "Let's go." Now. But he was staring at the floorboards. I followed his gaze and noticed something I hadn't before. A trapdoor, partially covered by dust and debris. The knocking came from underneath it. Then a voice. A raspy, guttural whisper. "Help me," I nearly screamed. Alex, for once, looked just as terrified as I felt. Without another word, we bolted. We ran faster than we ever had before, branches whipping at our faces, roots threatening to trip us. We didn't stop until we reached our house, slamming the door behind us. We didn't sleep that night. Neither of us spoke about what happened, not even when our parents got home. The next morning, Alex suggested we go back, just to prove to ourselves that it was nothing. I refused. 2 days later, he went without me. He never came back. The police searched for weeks. They found his footprints leading to the cabin, but nothing else. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no body, just gone. I don't know what happened to my brother that night. I don't know if he ever opened that trapdoor. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind is still, I swear I can hear it. A slow, deliberate knock, and a voice whispering my name.